Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Leahy. I'm the program conference manager for the Eastern Winery Exposition. Welcome to day 2. Exhibits will open at 9:30 today, I think. And so welcome to the Master Data Management, The Road Ahead. And it's my pleasure to introduce Sam Vinacore and Craig Ross, who have been working on a way to look at data management for winery businesses in the big picture scheme and integrate it all across production and sales channels and so forth. So it's very worthwhile. I will now turn it over to Sam.
Thank you, Richard. All right. Good morning. My name is Samuel Vinacore. I'm going to be talking to you today about master data management. But don't let the name fool you. What we're really here to talk about is the massive business value hidden in all the data you already have in different parts of your organization. And when I say business value, I'm not just talking about cutting costs and growing revenue. I'm talking about fundamentally freeing your staff to make great wine and engage consumers. The core problem here is so deep, it's literally taken me 20 years of working in this space as a technologist to really be able to talk about it. Luckily, the thumbnail version only takes one slide. The problem is easy to recognize by its symptoms. Data these days is splintered and duplicated and just plain wrong across multiple different business systems in most organizations. Getting these systems tied together and getting the data to all play nice together is what we're here to talk about. The solution is master data management, and beyond that, something we call data mastery. These are insanely deep topics, so I'll be covering a ton of ground here at a billion-foot level, but we're recording this session, and it'll be available on our website later if you want to review anything, and I've included a set of reference links at the end if you want to dive in deeper on anything. The main takeaway is that data mastery is something we all need to care about, because having a correct and complete bird's eye view of all your organizational data is critical, not only to regulatory compliance, but to objectively growing your business year over year in substantial and sustainable ways. The first question is how we even begin to tie different business systems together to comprehensively support winery business operations. This is our primary mission at Winery Connect. I promise you this presentation will not be a sales pitch. Most of what I'm going to talk about today, we can't actually do at the moment. And in fact, some of the challenges I'll talk about can't be solved with technology alone. But the starting point for the discussion on how we fix data is how we can economically connect the different business systems wineries use to support different parts of their operation. For the last 8 years, we've worked with wineries to understand what business systems work best for them and to get those systems to work well together. The core way we do this is through our unique and proven virtual IT department capability, tuned specifically to wineries. The question this begs is, what's an IT department? So let's take a look at what's inside. An IT department is first and foremost made up of people, human beings who not only understand technology, they understand your industry, and they understand your company intimately. They know your products and customers, and they can help your staff with whatever IT challenges they face on a day-to-day basis. This is what we call our Grape Squad, and I'm not going to talk about that here. If you'd like to learn more about the Grape Squad, please visit us on the trade show floor. What I am going to talk about is technology. This is the other big part of what makes up an IT department. People plus technology, in that order. I'm a technologist. I've been in technology for over 25 years. 20 years ago, I worked in the Xerox Core Integration Group for a number of years. And while I was there, the chief architect at Xerox mentored me in enterprise application and integration and enterprise architecture, and that set the tone for my career. I've worked in these areas ever since, but primarily for large companies who can afford to have a fully staffed IT department. In 2012, I started Winery Connect to try and bring what I'd learned to small and medium-sized producers. And I hope to show in this session how over time, and in particular over the last 8 years, technology has fundamentally evolved such that it's now possible to create a completely cloud-based business ecosystem, and how mining clean, well-structured data from across the clouds can give even smaller producers flexibilities and organizational insights previously only available to large organizations. Now, the question that begs is, what are clouds? There's a highly technical definition of what true cloud is, which luckily for us doesn't matter for this conversation. We're going to use the colloquial definition of the cloud, which is simply software being delivered as a service. All the computing power and data is out there somewhere in the clouds, and all you do is use a web browser or an app on your phone to access incredibly powerful software. The problem these days is that there are many, many, many clouds. There are beautiful clouds, like this wave cloud. There are clouds that can catch rainbows. There are so many clouds, and they're so beautiful that your business can get lost in the clouds. For the last 8 years, Winery Connect has worked with wineries to understand what makes them tick across what we call seed to sale to social, all the way from growing grapes and making a wine to selling in all the regulated ways producers sell, all the way to consumers tasting the wine and socially interacting about their experiences. In the process, we've also come to understand how these requirements overlap what cideries, breweries, and distilleries need, so that our core strength is that we continue to support total beverage alcohol producers better and better over the years. What we've done is work with producers to categorize the clouds, to understand which clouds work best across selling online, particularly via subscription wine clubs, selling in the tasting room and at festivals and such with a modern point-of-sale system, down to growing grapes and making wine with a cloud and mobile production control system. I'll get more into what this business ecosystem looks like and how we get to mastering data across the ecosystem in a moment. But first, I'm going to take a huge jump back and look at what led up to business ecosystems even being possible. In 2018, when I realized we were talking about a business ecosystem, I did some research on business ecosystem selling and found the article that's linked at the bottom. This image was at the top, and it blew my mind. If you look back to the beginning of the industrial age, the adding machine and the teletype, the purpose of electronic technology has always been to automate. At the beginning of the information age, the mainframe came around and introduced a level of efficiency on top of the automation, enabling data to be collected and managed across a business process. At the middle of the information age, the client-server revolution happens, and we break out of the glass houses. A wave of competition and innovation creates a level of effectiveness on top of the efficiency, working across business processes and getting more and more nuanced into what each kind of business needs. At the same time, business data was splintered. The client-server revolution, and then even more the internet when that came around, resulted in incredible new capabilities. But at the same time, data was split between more and more different systems from different vendors. At the end of the information age, as you move into what this image is calling the digital age, cloud and mobile comes around, and data becomes even more dynamic, leading to what, from my perspective, is the most interesting thing in this diagram. If you look in the upper right-hand corner here, you see that as we enter the digital age, platforms are replaced by business ecosystems. It's no longer possible to have one system which is the best at everything a growing business needs, so a business ecosystem becomes necessary. If you draw a line down, you see this happened just about in 2012. And what it enables is this rapidly scaling yellow area to the right, which represents innovation. As change and disruption continues, business ecosystems, along with master data management, and support extremely flexible innovation, with things like Internet of Things to gather real-time production data, and artificial intelligence to learn from it. Now let's get a little bit more specific and look at what a winery business ecosystem has to handle. At the highest level, the winery business is fairly simple. Wineries make wine and store it in a bonded warehouse. They then sell that wine through multiple heavily regulated channels and eventually account for all of this, typically in QuickBooks. The key to understanding the business and to being able to improve profitability over time is to understand your data. In particular, we're talking about customers, products, and orders across the commerce channels. This is particularly important for wineries because regulatory reporting needs to encompass all that data. But every business needs to be able to make strategic decisions based on good data. Traditionally, the way this happened is that a business would implement one large system to handle all their core requirements, and then the data would be in one place by definition. The problem is that when you get even a little bit into the details, you realize that wineries are in fact massively complex operations. In agriculture, manufacturing a controlled substance, selling it in all the heavily regulated channels we've been talking about. In particular online, wineries want to be able to grow monthly recurring revenue by building a large wine club. But beyond this, wineries often have full-service restaurants, get into weddings and events, and much more. There simply is no system out there that can handle all these requirements at all well. So wineries need to depend on multiple best-of-breed systems to get work done. By definition, this means somebody needs to tie all those systems together for the business to be able to operate efficiently, and maybe more importantly, to be able to produce the accurate bird's-eye view of all the operational data. This is what we mean when we're talking about a winery business ecosystem. Now let's dig a little bit more deeply into what we mean by operational data. Typically, as producers are forced to use different systems which best support each part of their operation, data ends up splintered among those systems. The technical way to say this is to say that data is siloed. Each department is able to work efficiently, but data which has to be shared between departments ends up being manually re-entered between systems, which is a huge unseen cost, not only in terms of staff time, but staff satisfaction, and even in many cases, customer satisfaction when mistakes are made that affect them. The good news is that because all these systems live in their own clouds, it becomes possible to integrate those clouds with another cloud. I won't get into detail here, but this is the key innovation which has only existed in the last 8 years, making cloud business ecosystems possible. Customers, products, and orders are automatically synchronized between systems, so everyone's on the same page without any manual effort. Digging in one level deeper, we see that even keeping these few pieces of data in sync ends up being a bit complicated. Products should be unique by SKU across the systems. Customers should be unique by email. Beyond this, you have categories and inventory levels for products, customer groups for customers, and taxes, discounts, and shipping tied to orders. Believe me when I say we're still just scratching the surface here in terms of complexity around commerce data. Let's dig a little bit more deeply into product, for instance. We've got the unique SKU we're talking about. Beyond that, there's a set of attributes that are supported by most commerce systems, things like name, price, and description. You may want values for these attributes to be different between your online store and your point of sale, or you may want them to be the same. Beyond this, there are any number of additional product attributes which are not directly supported by most commerce systems. These are critical to building wine tech sheets and such, but beyond this, the data can drive entirely new levels of business intelligence when combined with other operational data. Ideally, you want a flexible ability to add any additional product attributes you want, and then to enable staff to enter all this extra data once, even if you're not using a production control system. As wineries grow, however, the value of production control automation increases, and production control systems are one of the biggest untapped sources of data out there. There are fantastic systems available to help wineries manage everything from growing and harvesting grapes to making and bottling wine. One of the key requirements here is a clean mobile interface to make it easy to capture good data. From a commerce perspective, the key pieces of data this all results in are a SKU, accurate cost of goods sold, which most wineries we've worked with struggle to arrive at, and a bottling count. Production control systems, however, will also contain a vast trove of fantastic data around the product. Imagine for a minute the things we might find out if we combine all this detailed product data sitting back in our production control systems with data from all our commerce systems. Before we can even begin to think about leveraging all this data, however, we need to deal with a massive elephant in the room. Data in most operational systems today is a mess, particularly customer data, which tends to be vastly different between online stores, point of sale, email marketing systems, and so on, and incorrect in many of them. Many wineries we've worked with have struggled to even get a clear understanding of who their customers really are, let alone which are the most loyal and what their preferences are. What's needed is the core thing we're here to talk about, Master Data Management, or MDM. Wikipedia says MDM can be viewed as a discipline for specialized quality improvement, the ultimate goal of which is to provide the end-user community with a trusted single version of the truth from which to base decisions. This is the key. MDM is about properly supporting your most strategic decision-making with complete and accurate and robust data from across your organization. As you're all undoubtedly aware, this is easier said than done, and it's not just a technological issue. MDM is a huge area, and I'm not even going to try and do it justice in this session. I'm just going to touch on a few key concepts to give you a sense of how big a challenge this is. The first is what's called data governance, which encompasses the people, processes, and information technology required to create a consistent and proper handling of all an organization's data across the business. A data steward is an actual role within your organization, a person whose job it is to make sure the data is as good and as clean as possible. A data steward might be responsible for one data domain, as it's called in MDM terminology, customer or product, for instance, or they might be responsible for multiple domains. The golden record is a really cool concept. Typically, this is created in the middle between all the operational systems as the best version of the truth. Parts of this golden record can be created automatically, and in some cases, staff need to make decisions about which data is the best data. Which leads to the last key thing to keep in mind when it comes to data, which is that the work is never done. No matter how much we automate things, there are always going to be opportunities for human error all over the place. And there are cases where data naturally becomes muddy in the normal course of business. The classic case is when a customer comes in and gives one email address to the cashier in the point of sale, and then goes home and signs up to your online store with a different email address. Even in its fullest form, MDM technology can't always automatically resolve these situations, but it can recognize these situations and give staff an easy way to merge records, which seems simpler. So that's MDM. It's a quest. It's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to truly come to one source of the truth. The good news is there are a number of things which can be done relatively easily to get to far more consistent and accurate data automatically. This immediately cuts costs and frees up staff to do more value-added work, and it also leads directly to fundamentally better support for business decision-making. Drilling into a moment more into why we need good data from across the organization, I'll just touch on a couple points. First is compliance. Particularly for vertically integrated producers, there are a number of compliance issues which require accurate data from different parts of the organization. As just one example, think about excise tax. To properly compute excise tax, we need to know how much wine was in the bonded warehouse at the beginning of the period, and how much was in the bond at the end of the period, and the difference is what we owe excise on. Then we need to know what was tasted, because that's an exception, what went to distribution, because that's a bond-to-bond transfer, and we need to know all of this, not in bottles, but in gallons of still versus fortified versus sparkling. It would be pretty handy if you could automatically pull together data from different systems to get these answers. Business intelligence scenarios are too various to begin to get into, but we can talk quickly about two general types of business intelligence. The first is reporting. All operational business systems will come with some form of reporting, and often these are extremely useful ways to track what are called key performance indicators, or KPIs. Much more rarely, organizations are able to access true analytics. This is a tricky concept, but at the high level, the important thing to know is that even though people often say reporting and analytics in the same breath, there are many things which call themselves analytics are really just reports on steroids. True analytics can identify huge opportunities for improvement and are traditionally driven by what are called data cubes, which we'll dig into more in a moment. The next big concept I want to introduce is what we call data mastery. As we discussed, MDM is about arriving at a single version of the truth. Data mastery goes beyond this to achieve high-impact business outcomes based on the mastered data. To begin with, data mastery includes automation. When systems are integrated and then we master data across those systems, we get to consistent data. At the same time, we put ourselves in a position where we can do extremely powerful things in the middle to change how data flows between systems to support changing business processes. This is a pretty abstract concept, but I'll give you a couple specific examples which should make it clear how this enables fundamental business flexibility. For instance, when a customer comes into your tasting room and gives their email address to the cashier, wouldn't it be nice if an account could automatically be created for them in your online store, an email automatically sent to them thanking them for their visit and giving them a discount coupon for their first online order? Another great example. Many wineries we've worked with will manually figure out who qualifies for their reward club based on their purchase history across online store and point of sale, manually change the customer group for those customers in both systems, and then communicate with the customer about their rewards, and finally manually try and keep on top of who's expired year over year. All of this can be automated when the data is mastered. Automation is relatively easy once systems are integrated into a business ecosystem, but data mastery goes much farther. The true goal of data mastery is to distill all the operational data from across the organization, along with other things that might be of interest, things like real-time temperature readings from throughout the season, into what's called a data cube. The data cube is focused on a core piece of data. So for instance, the core of the data cube might be a dollar amount tied to a transaction. But that transaction also has any number of other pieces of data related to it in what are called dimensions of the cube. What products were purchased? Who purchased them? When were the purchases made? What day? What week? What month? What season? All this data is baked into this data cube, giving us global and very powerful ability to look at organizational data and learn from it. When the data is mastered, we can do incredibly powerful things. In the business intelligence space, terms such as slicing and dicing, rolling up, drilling down, and pivoting cover a range of techniques which, when used with a well-populated data cube, can lead to very interesting results. The broad goal is to distill the massive data from across the organization and beyond, what's sometimes called big data, into true analytics to support good business decisions. Large corporations have been making decisions this way for a decade or more. Cloud business ecosystems make it possible for you to make decisions the way Constellation, Treasury, and Gallo do. These decisions will drive to broadly desired business outcomes, such as customer acquisition. For instance, the data might point to a geography where a marketing push might best win new customers. Customer retention, which loyalty programs are your customers actually responding to? And customer growth, using data to understand how to deepen your relationship with different groups of customers based on their behavior so they buy more wine from you. And of course, the obvious, an ability to model and predict revenue across a range of assumptions. Finally, a key thing all of this drives towards is an ability to have organizational and operational dashboards show you at a glance how the whole organization is doing with an ability to drill into each area for more detail. Beyond the basic dashboard controls, there are a range of dashboard elements which can be used to do what's called data visualization. Dashboards which are properly put together can show you things that you might not expect, like people drinking rosé wines throughout the year, or that red wine is hot with boomers, but rosé is hot with the millennials. And again, when production data is included, we can start to ask some very interesting questions. The ability to see detailed correlations between sales data and production details like pH, residual sugar, or how long the wine spent on the skins makes it possible to produce wines that maximize revenue and profitability. I've covered an incredible amount of ground here. The concept I want to leave you with is IT as a service. This is the virtual IT department we talked about at the start of the session. If you think about it, wineries don't make their own tanks, they don't make their own bottling equipment. But most wineries we've talked with struggle with finding the best technology to support their business, getting that technology to actually work, let alone work together, and to produce the accurate business and regulatory reporting needed by management. IT as a service is a model for delivering these services in a way which drives directly to desired business outcomes. The core idea is that people who specialize in technology can learn from producers across the industry how best to support them year over year, and with the advances made in the digital age over the last 8 years, it becomes possible to deliver integration as a service, tie the clouds together into a business ecosystem, and work towards data mastery across the ecosystem. I've included a set of reference links here, which you can check out at your convenience if you'd like to dive deeper into any of the topics I've touched on. And if you'd like to see a full ecosystem in action, or if you have any questions we don't get to in Q&A, please visit us on the trade show floor. I'm going to turn it over now to Craig Ross, Vice President of Sales at True Commerce and External, who will take us out of the abstract and into some clear examples of how you can take advantage of good data. Craig?
Thank you, Sam. Okay, so we're going to spend a few minutes just looking at what you can do once you have all your data together and organized. Show of hands, assuming we didn't lose our screen. Who currently uses dashboards in their business? Anyone? 0, 1, 2, handful. 3. Okay. So dashboards are an awesome tool because they allow you to see at a glance what's going on. You might conceptually understand things, you might be looking over reports, you might not do anything, but dashboards give you just a great starting place to understand the pulse of your business and what opportunities are waiting for you. So, for example, this dashboard gives us lots of information easily at a glance. Simple things like, am I on track to hit my revenue targets? How are my sales charting over time? Who are my best customers? What products perform the best? So I can see all this stuff very easily. Where I think you can even get in much deeper would be things like U.S. sales map. Think about the states that you're registered to sell in. Well, which states are performing well, which ones aren't? Again, you could probably figure that out by poring over reports and spending a lot of time, or you can look at something like this and in a fraction of a second see what your performance looks like. Have you open up a new state and it's doing really well? Maybe you open up 2 states and one's performing a lot better than another one. Well, why? This will allow you to at least start asking those questions. The other things that you can do with dashboards, which I think are really powerful, is you can use them as a way to maybe dive in and understand opportunities. For example, one that I really like, if you have an online store and you have a search field in your online store and or your website, you can start analyzing that data. people are coming to your website. What are they looking for? Are they looking for things you don't sell but maybe have been thinking about? Are they looking for something simple like gift cards? And well, we didn't think we wanted to sell gift cards online. But you know what? People are looking for them. Or they're looking for tasting classes, or, I mean, you name it. We have lots of examples of our clients uncovering great opportunities because now they look at what people are searching for in their store. They can see they have demand. So not only can a dashboard show you necessarily what you're doing, it can also show you where opportunities lie, whether in missed opportunities for products that should be selling better than they are, states that aren't performing as well as they are, things people are looking for that you aren't capitalizing on yet. So we love dashboards. So if you're not doing anything with dashboards, most of you clearly aren't. It's definitely something to explore. Once you start getting your data aggregated, this just gives you an awesome, awesome tool set to understand what's going on and help you make better decisions. So this is an example of what a dashboard could look like. Next thing I want to talk about is lots of times people need data where, okay, the dashboard starts giving me a sense of where I want to look for things, but now I need to dive in deeper. So we like for people to have all the reporting they need as well. Show of hands, dashboard's not so popular just yet. Anybody have any sort of reporting engine, or does everybody get stuff out of QuickBooks? I guess anybody have like a reporting tool set or reporting engine? No one? A couple people? A couple other people, maybe they go to their accountant or use QuickBooks or something like that.
One in Square.
Square? Yeah, exactly, perfect. So what I like about having all of your data aggregated is same thing. You can start diving in and understanding and uncovering opportunities. For example, maybe I want to understand within whatever time frame you're interested in, what do my product sales look like? How are my products performing relative to others? So with something like this, I can pull this up. Let me just move this over a little bit. I can pull this up super easily. You know, why is my Sauvignon Blanc down here? Maybe I think this is the hottest product we have right now, and it's doing okay, but it's not performing like some of my other wines. Well, why is that? Are we not marketing it properly? Is there something else going on that we haven't thought about? Again, this gives you that kind of information. And so you can greatly use this tool set or any tool set like this to really understand what are we doing, how are things performing like I think they should be, and if not, what opportunities are we missing, and what opportunities can we uncover. Another thing I think is super powerful for people to think about is how do I get my orders? As Sam talked about, you can have an online store, you have in-person sales, you have perhaps wholesale sales, maybe you have a wine club. How do those different channels perform, and which one should you be focusing your efforts in? So, for example, I can easily see within this time frame, hey, my wine club is just going like gangbusters for me. This is the majority of my sales. Well, you know what? How do we get more people in our wine club? It performs super well for us. Having said that, I can also see what am I selling online? What am I selling in person? What am I selling on the phone? And so this allows you to understand where your customers coming from and how do you interact with them. And so having that data and understanding what opportunities are missing from your current portfolio is a great way to think about that as well. The other thing that people typically want to do from a reporting perspective is understand their customers. And so, yes, I've got obviously lots and lots of customers, hopefully, but which customers are my best customers and which customers are not performing for me like I think they should be? So let me just show you what a report like that can look like. So I can see with whatever date range I want, what are people buying from me? And maybe in this case, like Jim Ackerman, I mean, he's my best customer, but you know what? His sales are not what they typically are. Instead of just being asleep at the wheel, I can understand, hey, Jim's typically buying, I don't know, let's say $4,000 worth of stuff from me per month, and this month his sales are down. He's still performing well relative to others, but hey, you know what, maybe I want to have a salesperson reach out to Jim, or maybe I want to reach out to Jim. Hey, what's going on? Are we missing something? How can we be of assistance to you? You know, I can see all of this, and then therefore make decisions based off of it. So that's just a brief glance at what you can do from a reporting perspective. So the key to all this, of course, is I have to have my data together. Otherwise, I'm going to all these different systems. Going to different systems is better than not going to any system. But once my data is aggregated, now it becomes really powerful. I can see it all in one place. I can organize it. I can see what opportunities are baked in there, and I can use this as just a powerful, powerful tool set. Now, the third thing that I want to talk about, because Sam touched on, is if I have my customers, if I can take my customers and aggregate them across my channels, that gives me a powerful tool to start segmenting my customers and marketing to them. Anybody here do any sort of customer, either segmentation or customer, have some sort of customer database and market to their customers via that database and do targeted marketing? One, couple back there. Okay, so what I'm seeing at least is tons of opportunity in this room. So that's what we really like. So once you have your customers aggregated and you understand their purchase behavior and you understand their demographic info, you can do all sorts of awesome things. So for example, here's my customer list. Let's assume we are a Pennsylvania winery, given where we are. And maybe not today, given what's going on, but maybe in a few weeks, I want to do an outreach to my customers who are in New York State. Hey, you know what? We're going to have a, come back to Pennsylvania special. So we want to send them a targeted marketing message. We don't maybe want to send it to the people in Pennsylvania or our customers in Pennsylvania because they're going to come visit our winery anyway, and we know that. But people a little further out who might be a little nervous today, we want to start bringing them back. So I can always come in to something like this and say, you know what, just show me my customers who are in New York. And once we do that, I don't have my whole customer list now. These are just my New York customers. So now that I have them, I can send them whatever sort of mailing I want or targeted email, specific promotion to them. Again, this isn't to everybody. It's targeted just to this customer list. And so once I can start doing targeted marketing that way, I can uncover all sorts of opportunities. So that's just one example. An example that I like perhaps even better is if I've got all my customer data, I can do targeted marketing based off of purchase behavior. So for example, I know all my customers, I know what they buy. I can do something like what we call an order history search, where I want to find people who have spent maybe $1,000 with me, but who have not ordered since the beginning of the year. So let's go back to January. Okay, so what we're doing here is, hey, you spent at least $1,000, you're a great customer of ours, but you haven't bought anything this year. Where have you been? Let's find you and let's bring you back. So once I know so here's now my list of my, what we'll call formerly good customers. Now that I know who you are, now let's market to you. Anybody do any sort of, have like an email tool like MailChimp or anything like that for targeted emailing? Same thing, show of hands. Okay, we got to get all you guys on board, but one thing at a time. So now that we know who our formerly good customers are, we can bring them back. And I can do that with something like MailChimp or something like this, where I can send a targeted email to just my order history search. So in this case, I can not only send them an email, I can make it targeted just to them. So I can say something like, hello, first name, we want you back. Now, you guys are all much better at marketing than I am, so you'll have a much better marketing message than this. Question?
So how do you get the emails to start?
Yeah, so excellent question. And for those who didn't hear, the question is basically, look, our testing room is swamped on the weekend. How do we get people's email addresses? We're backed up trying to ring people out. We don't have time to also ask them for their email address. So yeah, that's on one hand a great problem. On the other hand, it's a great opportunity because you have your customers at your location. So you have a touch point. So then the question is, how do I convert that touch point? What a lot of our clients will do is they'll they'll do things like when somebody checks out, they'll put a coupon in their bag or hand them a coupon. Hey, here's a coupon for maybe 10% off your first online order. And so then you're driving them from your tasting room to online. Online, they have to give you an email address. It's just a portion of that's required to check out. And so they'll use the coupon as a vehicle to get them to, they'll use the coupon as a vehicle to get their email address and an order. Sometimes people will just have like a sign-up sheet. Sign up to be on our mailing list, and we'll send you promotions, and that works too, but no, credit cards don't. No, credit cards don't. That would be cool, but no, credit cards, we as marketers would love that, but credit card companies, no, will not do that. There are some lookup tools and things, but those are typically more business-oriented, so you could probably, like for example, if you know Craig Ross was in your tasting room because you see on his credit card, he bought something, you see his credit card transaction, you could probably find it wouldn't be too hard for you to find my work email address, but you probably wouldn't find my personal email address online. So, cool idea, but now the credit card companies really aren't on board. I think something that drives them to some promotion to either get them to buy something from you online or to sign up for a mailing list, those are your two best options, or maybe a combination of both.
Actually, if I could build on that just for a second, this is one of those real problems that technology can't always solve alone. So, and sometimes there's just no solution. Customers want to cash out, but one of the main ideas, and Craig touched on this, is you have multiple touch points. So whether it's online, in the point of sale, and whatever, and you want to consolidate those. And there's a real neat opportunity to use things like social apps. So and say when somebody pulls into your parking lot, it can geofence and say, all right, you're here. Do you want to sign our guest book? So that type of technology is out there as well. And then you get their email address before they even walk in the door, and it's pushed directly into your point of sale system.
Yeah, so exactly. So yeah, some sort of incentive really is and I think, Facebook has kind of really understood this from the beginning. A lot of people think about, like, if you want somebody's email address, you're expecting something from them, you kind of have to give them something in return is typically the best way to do it. All of us, I'm sure everybody's had the experience of going to, I don't know, like back in the day, you go to like Radio Shack or something to buy batteries, and like, well, what's your email address? I'm like, well, what does that have to do with anything? I'm buying batteries. Why do you want that? So that's kind of off-putting for a customer. You need to have the incentive where, hey, I want to give you my email address because you're giving something to me also. Yeah, great question. And that's one thing that's great about online is with online, you have to get their email address. Like there's no way to do online without the email address component. And so driving people to that channel when appropriate is a great customer acquisition tool. And then, so then once you have that, whether you use a tool like this or something like MailChimp, once you segment your customers down to that targeted list, you can then send them a targeted message. And if you're doing different messages to different customers, that's what smart marketers do. That's how you succeed. Sending the same message to everybody all the time, a message that's relevant to Sam might not be relevant to me or vice versa. And so having something targeted to me based off of what I buy from you or don't buy from you, you can see tremendous, tremendous gains. So that's really the final thing I wanted to show you that you can do once you sort of have a handle on your customers and understanding that a customer online and a customer in your tasting room, it could be the same person. And so having the systems in place that tie that together as a customer, I expect that you would know that if I'm in your tasting room, I'm the same person who bought from you online and vice versa. And that's really, I think, if you take everything that Sam described and boil it down to the customer, that's really where we get to, where I want you to know who I am no matter how I buy from you. And we all have that experience, like if you buy something online and bring it to a retail store to return it, or you have a coupon online and you go to a retail store, we all instinctively understand this from our day-to-day. And so, we get it for ourselves. Now how do we do this as a business so that our customers get it too? So that's what I wanted to show you guys. So questions? Right in front, we like that. That's an awesome question.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so the question was, how long does it take to I mean, it's kind of a two-part question. One, how long does it take to get something like this spun up? And then two, how long does it take before it's actually useful to me? And so I guess I would say it sort of depends. Having said that, the key is really, if you already have systems in place, if you already have a point of sale in your tasting room, and you already have an online store, depending on what those systems are, Sam can probably wire those together a couple months, less.
Well, I don't know about actually wiring them together, but certainly what we can do is pull data out of them, and depending on what systems you've got. So yeah, if you've got historical data, you can populate things pretty quickly.
So then the question becomes, if your data's good, and how far back does it go? If it goes back, let's say a couple, like this example I just showed here, where I'm only going back to the beginning of this year, and I can already start doing some pretty interesting things with it. Now, it might be the off season, so maybe my example's not 100% perfect, but if you have data that goes back, let's say 6 months, from my perspective, that gives you a lot to work with. And obviously, if you can go back even further, then things could become even more interesting. But I think once you get in the 3 to 6 month range, then for something like this, it becomes really powerful. For something like a dashboard, it might be powerful right away. Like, hey, we opened up, maybe we open up new states January 1st, and well, how are they performing for us? I don't have to wait to see that data. I can see that now. So things like, customer segmentation and targeted messaging, probably 3 to 6 months, and you're off, and you have stuff you can work with. For something like a dashboard, you might have if your data goes back, you'll have something you can look at, and that might give you some insights right away. Great question.
Okay, next question.
My question is, why does the wine industry need its own specific CRM tool?
So, great question. Basically, the question is, what's different about the wine industry than everybody else from a CRM perspective? And CRM, if those aren't heard the term, stands for customer relation management. It's the idea of, who are my customers? How do I interact with them? What do they do with me? What do I do with them? If you call an airline, especially now, they use a CRM system to understand what you bought, what you talked about when you called them last time, or your credit card. A lot of companies use CRM systems. From a wine-specific CRM, you're right, you don't need a wine-specific CRM. There's lots of CRMs that you could use. The Nexternal platform, which is what I was demonstrating, since this is what I work on, we of course have CRM tools built in, and we really focus on the wine industry. Having said that, the biggest CRM company that most people have heard of is called Salesforce.com. I'm sure many wineries. Salesforce tends to be expensive, so it's probably more big wineries who use it, but yeah, you do not need to use a winery-specific CRM. As long as the CRM can be customized to your needs, then yeah, you're in good shape.
Actually, I'd like to build on this and say that, and I'll try and keep it brief, because this is a deep topic for me that has really been a challenge I've faced for 20 years, really, is that I've wanted to encompass everything some vertical needed. And so when I started this company, actually, in 2012, my idea was we were going to close the loop. We were going to do commerce automation, so you could have one set of customers, products, and orders across the channels. And we were going to do that for small to medium-sized businesses. That can't be too hard, is it? And found out pretty quickly that's impossible. I don't care if you're IBM or who you are. There's just too many differences between different verticals to be able to say you're covering everything. So the idea, if anybody knows what an ERP system is, that's the idea of an ERP system was this is one system that would handle everything a business needs. It's a lie. The ERP system never does. So people spend tons of money implementing an ERP system that's supposed to handle the whole organization, and then find they need to spend a whole bunch more money integrating it into other systems that they still need. So what we've finally figured out is that, and it was School of Hard Knocks over the last 8 years, working with wineries to figure out, you know what, the only way to really do that, to really comprehensively support, you can't be everything to everyone, is to deeply verticalize. So we focused in on wineries in the Finger Lakes, and then pretty quickly as wineries, craft beverage producers, and said, what does this business need end to end? So the CRM system is just one piece of your business. You want everything to be tied together, in particular around regulatory compliance and other issues. And what we found is just wineries are pretty complex and unique operations with the food service, lodging, all the different things, the large gift shop. It's just a set of requirements that's very different from what a lot of different businesses need when you look at the whole picture.
Yeah, and Sam actually, just to, then we'll move on, but Sam made a really good point around compliance. So let's assume I am a big winery and I need a big CRM, so I'm going to use Salesforce. Well, I probably have to worry about compliance issues. Salesforce doesn't know anything about that. All they know is customers and orders and opportunities. That's the language that they use. So now you have to build, or somebody's got to build a compliance engine into that also. Is this customer at their limit of what we can sell them for this time frame? Are there allocation rules that the CRM needs to know about? Something that's winery specific conceptually would have that information already in it, and so it'd be much more efficient for you guys.
Take a question here.
So does the system, like, since everyone is largely using QuickBooks, does the system have a good accounting system that emulates QuickBooks built into it, or are we still using two disparate systems?
So something like Nexternal, what I was showing, and I'm not here to sell Nexternal right now, I'll sell it to you in a few minutes, but anyway, this is not an accounting system, so we never, accounting is a different animal, so you should still, I mean, most of our clients in the wine industry use QuickBooks, and so this doesn't replace QuickBooks. The data collected in here will get sent to QuickBooks. Hey, QuickBooks, this is what we've done, and so then your bookkeeper, your accounting can do what they need to do from a accounting perspective. So no, this talks to QuickBooks, but it doesn't replace it.
Can you provide a real-world example of how this has helped any particular vineyard winery system, specifically going in, looking at the dashboard and looking at an outlier somewhere, going back and investigating and finding out the why, making a change and finding out that that change has worked or not worked? Do you have an example of something like that?
Yeah, the one it's a simple example, but the one that I like because I hear it time and time again is I think a lot of people think about, okay, I've got my tasting room and then I've got online, and they're two different things, and they don't really cross-pollinate. And we see time and time again that's not true, because what happens is online, let's assume you sell gift cards for your tasting room, and lots of our winery clients do. They don't sell them online because they don't think, well, who would go online to buy a gift card? Only people buy gift cards when they're in the physical store. And then the first thing they see once they fire this up, gift cards. It's like the #1 search result, time and time again. And they don't have them because, well, why would somebody buy a gift card online to use, to give to somebody to use at my physical location? As soon as they turn that on, it becomes their bestseller or top 3. I mean, it depends on the winery, but we see that. I mean, it's just so repeatable. It's kind of a joke for us now, but we see that constantly. So it's a simplistic example, but it's a super powerful one. It's easier for people to understand that, hey, we didn't think somebody would use this channel to buy we didn't think somebody would use the online channel to buy something for the physical channel, but it happens all the time.
All right, next question.
I was wondering if you are looking at trying to integrate as completely as you can, if there's certain areas of specialization, cloud specialization, that you might want to look at first and build from there. In 2010, I was working with a winery that was changing platforms because they ran into a dead end with integration. And so they went to Vin 65 and Ship Compliant and was able to pretty closely get almost everything they needed. But it did seem like Ship Compliant was like, at the time, kind of like at the top of that particular specialization. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if at this point there's more options and less of a concern about that kind of thing, or if you should look at it that way and kind of do your research and try to build from one point.
Yeah, great question. And assuming I fully understand really the core of your question, the question's around, is there a system I should look at to kind of do everything for me, or am I better off finding best-of-breed solutions and tying them together. I mean, is that a fair description? So I think both myself and Sam would argue that you're better off finding the best tools that you need and then having a system that ties them together. And that's what Sam and his company, I mean, that's what they specialize in. Because otherwise, to find the one system that does everything, I mean, I haven't seen it, and I know, I just haven't seen that. And then people try to take something's going to be really good in one area, and then they try to make it work in these other areas too, and then they just keep running into roadblocks. I mean, that's something we see often. And just like the question before, I would argue, at least for me, putting on my sales hat for 1 second, even though I'm not supposed to, I would argue this is the best system in the world for wineries, but we're not an accounting system. Like, sometimes people try to use us in an accounting system, but that's not what we do, and then they run into issues. And we have shipping tools built in, we have great shipping tools built in, but we're not ship compliant. If the compliance around shipping is important to you, we integrate with ship compliant. So yeah, try to find one thing to do everything for everybody all the time. I've just never seen that.
Yeah, I'll expand a little bit. Again, this is what I've done for 20 years, is enterprise application and integration and enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture being about saying, what's your technology architecture today? Where should it be in 3 to 5 years to support your business mission, instead of the other way around? People very often bring in technology and have to wrap their business around the technology instead of getting the technology that does just what they want it to do. But then what the enterprise architect does is work with the producer year over year to make trade-off decisions, because you can't boil the ocean all at once. You can only solve one problem, but you don't want to you don't want to spend any more than you have to today, but you don't want to paint yourself into a corner where you've got to throw things out in a year or two to get to the next business advantage. Maybe you want to open up food service. Maybe you're thinking about opening up a brewery as part of your operation. So there's over the years, I've seen there's basically, once you get the idea of integration, there's another level that I think is worth talking about of nuance there. When people started integrating, they did what are called point-to-point integrations. You integrate this system with that system, this system with that system, and pretty quickly you've got a spider web mess, and it's just not sustainable. So the better way that technologists have come up with is what's called a hub and spoke architecture. So you've got a hub in the middle, and you've got these spokes tying into whatever you want, and that's our cloud that integrates other clouds. So we sit in the middle, and we can keep on integrating different systems. And so Craig touched on it before. I mean, depending on the system, it could be a couple months, but I didn't want to make that promise, because integration is a lot more complicated than it seems on the outside, and that's something that's is a problem for integration, because people say, oh, you've got an API, you can just plug things together. And no, there's a lot more that goes on in what's called message-oriented middleware, which is that stuff in the middle and dealing with moving data around between systems. So.
And the final point I'll make on this topic is sometimes there's this concept where if I get like an all-in-one solution, it's simpler, it's all in one place. But actually it's more complicated, because now you have this one thing trying to do everything for everybody. So, now my accountant has to go to the same system as the person who's trying to do email promotions, let's say, and the email person working on marketing is super confused because there's all this accounting stuff in their way, and vice versa. And so now you start having everything becomes, instead of just like a product area, the product area also has to include accounting information, marketing information, and it starts just getting real complicated for people to figure out what's the piece they need to work on, as opposed to, hey, you're in accounting, you're going into QuickBooks. You're in sales, you're going into our marketing tool, And so sometimes having the specialization of products that works together, one, works better, and two, it makes it easier for your staff.
One more quick point. If you have everything in one system, that ends up being a single point of failure for everything. So really having multiple best-of-breed systems is the best thing for your company to have a robust, reliable infrastructure going forward. So you've got a global company that's focused on point of sale, dealing with your point of sale stuff, and they aren't getting distracted trying to be everything to everybody. You've got a global company handling some other piece. So I'm blanking on the word, but it's robust. It helps you stay in business and be flexible.
We have time for one more question.
In front, maybe?
In either of your opinions, is there like an optimal amount of softwares that you would want to implement for a small and medium business to kind of keep yourself in a, not going overboard with the number of softwares, but really accomplishing your goals and solving your problems?
I'll give my opinion first. So for a small, so keeping production off to the side, because that's something that you guys know a lot about probably, but I don't. But from a sales and marketing perspective, I really look at 3 pieces of software. I've got my point of sale system, I have my online system, and then I have my accounting system. So I like 3 to answer that question.
Yeah, I'd say it all depends on what your business mission is and where you are. I mean, for sure, the 3 Craig mentioned are the core ones. That's your commerce systems. But I'll give you an example. One of our customers said, you know what, on the wholesale end, which is a much bigger part of our business, we want true CRM. We want it, which, and from my perspective, true CRM is a system that has a sales pipeline. You've got a process, you can manage your salespeople and for the bigger opportunities. And so he said, you know, I want this all to work well together. And so that was his priority. So it really all depends on what your priorities are. And I wouldn't say there's any, I mean, those 3 are required. That you can't do commerce without, you know, being able to sell online and point of sale and an account for it. But it all depends on what you want to do with the business.
Good. Okay, Sam, Craig, thank you very much.
Thank you.